Hello and good morning. Welcome to this workshop within the scope of the Big Data for Rivers project. Today, we will focus on the Water Framework Directive. I would like to inform you that simultaneous interpretation is available for this session. For that purpose, you need to follow the link that was sent to you so that you can go to interactive platform. Then you should include the code which was provided to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to use also the chat feature on the bottom right hand corner. This session will be recorded and will be made available afterwards. Having said that, I would like to thank the participation of all the attendees, namely the partners of this project, the Iberian Association of Riverside Municipalities of Douro River, the County Administrative Board of Oostergotland, the Technology University Thomas, the Romanian Businessmen Union, and the Ministry of Environmental Protection Agency from Lithuania, and our colleagues from Athens. This session will focus on the Water Framework Directive, the main instrument of the European Union water policy, which establishes a framework for community action in the field of the protection of inland surface waters, transitional waters, coastal waters, and groundwater. I would like to give the floor now to the President of the Inter-Municipality Community of Alto Minho for the opening remarks, Mr. José Maria Costa. A very good morning to all of you. I hope you can hear me and watch me properly. Unfortunately, this meeting is a virtual meeting. First and foremost, I would like to welcome all the members of the Big Data for Rivers for this week of activities that starts today and it will finish on January the 14th. I would like to acknowledge the work done by our partners, particularly the county of Östergötland in Sweden, the Iberian Association of Riverside Municipalities of Douro River, the Kaunas University in Lithuanian, the Businessmen Union of Romanian, and the Regional Development Fund of Athens in Greece, and also our entire group colleagues from France. It's indeed a pleasure for us to count on such diverse partners from across the EU. This enables us to learn from each other and build a more smart water management strategy, leveraging the new technologies. As you know, in our region, we have been working on this matter with the 10 cities of the inter-municipal community of Alto Minho. We are comprised, as I said, by 10 cities, and they all have this key asset. We have two main rivers and some other important water streams. A unique feature of our region is the fact that we have two cross-border rivers, the Rio Lima, that has its origins in Galicia, and then the River Minho, whose source is also in Spain. Of course, that this entails additional questions in terms of river management. I would even say joint river management with our colleagues from across the border. We are very much interested in working with all of you so that we can advance the management of our water resources. And we look forward to learn from you all during this workshop. I wish you all a fruitful seminar. I would like also to thank all those that will collaborate with us in this project, including several entities that made available top-notch experts to support us during our endeavors. I would like to thank all the speakers, all the moderators, all the attendees on behalf of the intermunicipal community of Alto Minho and on behalf of our partners. I wish you a fruitful seminar. I wish you a fruitful week. I hope that by the end of this project, we'll be better equipped with more and better information so that we can have a better management of this scarce resource, which is the water. I wish you all the best. I would like also to congratulate the leaders of this project. And again, I would like to reiterate, I wish you a successful working day. Thank you very much, dear Mayor. In order to kick off the first panel on the Water Framework Directive, I will give the floor to Professor Ana Cristina Rodrigues, Vice Director of the Agrarian School of the Polytechnic Institute in Viana do Castelo. She will be the moderator. Thank you very much and good morning to all of you. First and foremost, on behalf of the President of the Polytechnic Institute of Viana do Castelo and on my personal behalf, I would like to thank the invitation to moderate this panel. Secondly, I would like to congratulate the intermunicipality community of Alto Minho for organizing this seminar. And I would like also to thank you for enabling this sharing of experiences, good practices, and the discussion on this such important topic. In order to be successful, we need to work together so that we can fulfill the objectives provided for in the Water Framework Directive. You all have the agenda for this seminar. I don't know if all the speakers are already available, but we will have as speakers today Vitorino José, representing the Portuguese Environment Agency. We will have Sofia Bastviken, representing the Unit for Water of the County Administrative Board of Oostergotland, and Line Dant Vatonieri. I think she's already with us. She will be representing the Ministry of Environment and Environmental Protection Agency from Lithuania. And we'll also have the Iberian Association of Riverside Municipalities of Douro River in Spain, represented by Antonio Sanvinis. These will be the speakers. I don't know if you can hear me loud and clear.
How to access the translation. Please click in the app, in the link, and introduce the code for rivers. Then select
Luísa,
language do you want.
Luísa, desculpa-me interromper.
Shall I speak in English or in Portuguese? maybe it in English. Apparently, some people are struggling to have access to the link and to the interpretation.
Will be about the Water Framework Directive, and the participants, the speakers of this panel will be Vitorino José in representation of Environmental Protection Agency from Portugal, Sofia Bastviken from Water Unity of the County Administrative Council in Sweden, Jolanta I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it well, Jolanta Dvaniorieni from the Ministry of the Environment and the Environmental Protection Agency in Lithuania, and the Iberian Association of Ribeirinhos do Douro municipalities will be represented by António Safins. So I would like to thank the invitation to moderate this session in the name of the president of Polytechnic Institute of Viana do Castelo, and also in my name, in my personal name. And I would like to congratulate the Simão Tominho and the project team for the organization of this working session about the Water Framework Directive, and the opportunity to discuss and to share all the experiences from the partners of this project, because only together we can learn from each other and implement some good practices that have been successful in other countries and in other regions. So in Portugal, I don't know if Vitorino José is already there. I don't think so.
Yes, I am.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was not seeing. So in Portugal, I don't. Vitorino, do you have a presentation?
Yes, I do. I haven't already my presentation. So feel free to announce it.
Okay.
And
so in Portugal, we had the environmental objective of reaching the good state of the water resources until 2015 was not achieved, and with the second generation of the water resources management plans, the good state of the water resources was re-evaluated, and I think 53% of the water resources were classified as a good state, with good state, and these management plans have a period of implementation from 2016 until 2021, and with this evaluation in Minho region, in Alto Minho region, I think 68% of the water resources were classified with a good state. But there's a lot of things to do, despite all the work that have been done until now and all the efforts that were conducted to reach this environmental objective, there's still a lot of things to do. So Vitorino José will share with us all the work that has been done, and we'll talk about the situation in Portugal regarding the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. Vitorino, you have the word now, please.
Okay. Hopefully you are seeing the presentation, I believe. Ok. Em nome pessoal e em nome da Agência Portuguesa do Ambiente,
On my personal behalf and on behalf of the Portuguese Environment Agency, good morning, and I would like to thank the organization for inviting me to participate in this seminar and share with you the work we've been doing the last few years. We live in a global world, so the sharing of experiences is always a very important tool.
participating on seminary. My presentation will be focused on the monetizations and the approach that we do on some topics. The presentation will be in Portuguese, but I'll do my best to speak slowly and allow the translator to translate it. Como referi nesta
As I had the opportunity to mention, I will talk about monitoring, and I've selected 3 topics, and each of these topics are linked to a challenge and different solutions. I will also talk about cross-border collaboration, something that is very important for Portugal, given that water basins, the most important ones, are shared with Spain. And also regarding climate change, I will talk about temporary river courses. But let me first introduce to you the Portuguese Environment Agency, APA in the Portuguese acronym. APA was created in 2012 with the merging of entities linked to climate change, the environment, and water management. It is a modern public institute integrated in direct administration of the state. The Portuguese Environment Agency not only has competencies in the field of water, it also has responsibilities in many other fields such as waste, air quality, and the coastal protection, among others. Our model of management is water basins. There are 5 regional departments: North, Center, Tagus in the Western region, the Alentejo, and the Algarve. And each entity has responsibles for the monitoring, management, licensing, and planning of water resources. In the North region, there are 3 basins. 2 are international, the Lima and Douro River, and the area is of almost 25,000 square meters and the resident population of 3.7 million inhabitants. Here on this map, we can see in detail the water region, number 1, and it has pretty much the same area of our hosts of the CIM of Alto Minho, the intermunicipal community of Alto Minho. Now let's see the monitoring challenges. Let me mention 3 examples. In the first one, we will see the implemented monitoring of pressures. We will see the chemical DQA. In the second, innovative techniques in monitoring and their advantages. And finally, an example whereby an interinstitutional cross-border cooperation is an added value. The pressures in a country and within a basin vary a lot. In Portugal, we have the processing industry, namely the textile industry. In the south, there's a strong farming component, so there is an asymmetry, and there are also mostly the urban concentrations by the coastal area. So we need to follow the water resources, and we know that things are not easy. If possible, on our side, we would monitor everything everywhere, but this is not possible because of costs. Therefore, we must select the assessment of sites, in particular now because there are a long list of chemical substances that are regulated, and this is linked to high monitoring costs. So what was the option and what was our strategy? First and foremost, we decided to do a typification by sector, industrial sector, and with different groups linked to each pressure. For example, for the extractive industry, it's impossible to monitor metals. In agriculture, pesticides. In wastewater treatment plants, other compounds. So like this, we're able to define what we will monitor. We just have to define where this monitoring will take place. The information was obtained based upon a geographic information system, namely by the river basin, and also with the PITR level. Regarding diffuse cases, it is the analysis of soil occupation charge, and we selected farming, grazing areas as those that are relevant for this type of pressure. In the end, we decided to do an expert assessment using the knowledge of our technical staff. And it is also important to mention that resulting from the merging of bodies in 2012, it was possible to carry out the tests in-house with the Environment Reference Laboratory and regional laboratories, and also to define extra parameters, namely organic metals without added costs. And these parameters were not foreseen to be monitored, but with this equipment, it was possible to do it without major costs. And this is always useful information that we can use. Here we can see the map of the soil occupation. In orange, we have farming areas, and in green, forests. The quantification of diffuse pressures is always complex, not only in the farming sector, but also depending in other activities, and also the sequencing of roads. In order to overcome this, we always need information of competent authorities in the matter, and this is not always easy. In this map, we can see an example of low topical pressures on site. We have the treatment plants in different municipalities, extractive industries, and the processing industries. I can also share with you that in this type of planning, we did the surveying of hydromorphological realities, and we have remote detection with the use of satellite images, and also the interpretation of orthophoto maps. and also other techniques. We should also highlight the importance of the SIM tool that facilitates the work that has been developed so far. So, what were the main outcomes of this pressure assessment conducted by the Environmental Protection Agency? First, we had the different basins in Portugal, but there was an optimization of resources, and also this led to the increase in the number of monitored water basins. Another advantage was more information, namely about pesticides. And this is often useful when we are asked information about the existence of pesticides. Finally, all the monitoring data are made available to the public at large free of charge in this platform, the SNIR platform, SNIRH platform. And now let's segue into a different theme, emerging pollutants and new monitoring methodologies. So what are emerging pollutants? These are pollutants that currently are not included in the monitoring programs. They can be regulated in the future depending on the outcomes of research regarding toxicity and hazardous effects for the human health. Most water treatment plants are not prepared for these emerging pollutants. There's also diffuse emerging pollutants related with agro production. And we don't have much information about this. So we decided to use innovative methods, namely the use of passive indicators that enable us to do a sweeping, identifying new substances with color systems that enable an unequivocal identification. We can see here the different types used, namely for surface waters and for groundwaters, these that look like rulers. Two types of membranes were used, one for polar and one for non-polar substances to detect the different types of compounds. And this equipment is submerged in the water, and the assessment is qualitative regarding the presence of compounds. Here we see the selected sites for surface waters, and we took into account the location of pressures, namely urban, agricultural, and industrial, with the purpose to have an overview of the worst case scenario. If in the worst case scenario these are not present, it is foreseeable that they are not present in other cases. We've installed the equipment in rivers, reservoirs, transitional coastal waters, and groundwaters also. Regarding the detection, we've detected medicines for human use, antibiotics, antidepressants, painkillers, among others, as well as pesticides and veterinary drugs, namely antibiotics. Here we can see some graphs with the main pesticides detected. 116 pesticides were detected, and I'm not going to try and say the name of these compounds because we will just lose time with the translation, says the gentleman. So we have insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides, and we can see the respective amounts. It is also important to mention that not all pesticides detected, their sale is authorized in Portugal. So we are importing pesticides that in theory should not be used in Portugal. Now, regarding pharmaceutical products that have been detected, 65 pharmacological action products were detected and 15 metabolic. The central nervous system was the group with the largest number of detected substances. This reflects and mirrors, to a certain extent, the aging of the Portuguese population, and also large percentages of painkillers such as tramadol, and also linked to the cardiovascular system such as Varsatin. Finally, regarding antibiotics, we can see which are the most frequent. We have the case of enrofloxacin and tyromycin. Some of these compounds are linked to human consumption and some are of exclusive veterinary use, but they are a good indicator of animal pressure. And to finish this topic, we can reach the conclusion that the use of this sampling technology enabled a wide-ranging knowledge about regulated substances, but also the detection of many other compounds. And this can be a good basis for future decision taking in the water policy. Now, the last challenge that I've chosen. We will now see the revision of water bodies. And this resulted from the implementation of the framework, the Water Framework Directive. There are five transition water bodies, 4 are cross-border water bodies. This is Caminha, Valença, and Monção. However, following the first cycle, it was considered that we needed to assess the dimension of these transition waters. Regarding transition waters, they go up to Monção from the part of the international Minho River is considered an estuary. So we have the Team Minho project, and this was spearheaded by the University of Vigo, including several partners, namely the Portuguese Agency of the Environment in the North, and also our partners from the water sector. The purpose was to establish homogeneous scientific criteria both for Portugal and Spain, enabling the classification, determination of reference conditions, and the classification of the environmental status of the transition water bodies of southern Galicia and northern Portugal. We consider this project to be an added value because it enabled us to identify gaps regarding these transition waters, regarding which we didn't have a lot of know-how. It was considered that the salinity parameter in high tide and low tide, this parameter was considered a good indicator for the estuary water bodies. There's a good correlation between this parameter and the communities or species present in the water. This study was the scientific support for these typologies upstream from transition to the category of rivers, and this change happened in the second planning cycle. For those who work in the field of environment and water resources, you know that these small changes are not easy to accomplish in the European Commission, and we need to scientifically justify this, and we may replicate the knowledge acquired in this project to new estuaries. This has not happened yet, but we hope to accomplish it soon. Now let's talk about cross-border cooperation. Regarding the cross-border rivers, Portugal is mainly in a downstream position regarding Spain, so we depend upon the affluence of Spain. But the quantity and quality of water bodies are vital for Portugal. Thus, cross-border cooperation is vital for a good management of common water resources. Although we foresee the joint development of water resources plans in international basins, this has not been possible given the differences in technical approaches and also the timing of the two countries. However, it is important to highlight that it has been possible to coordinate the drafting of plans, namely via the joint participation in the different institutional events, as well as the monitoring, the classification of water bodies, and also the definition of environmental goals. We may not have common plans, but at least steps are being given in the right direction. And this results from the good institutional relations. Thus, it has been possible to develop several cross-border projects, and these contribute towards better knowledge and improvement of water bodies. And also, as a good practice, we've been able to share information, namely regarding pressures and the monitoring conducted in Portugal and in Spain. We already have some work being done preventing the doubling of costs. Some water bodies are monitored by Spain and others are monitored by Portugal. Now I would like to show you some cross-border projects in which we participated, and these are being developed in the water region where we are. We have the Carisma project that was developed with this entity, the Team Minho project, the Risk Minho project linked to the prevention of droughts in the international basin of the Minho River, the Migra Minho project related with the protection and preservation of migration fish, and the North Water project related with emerging pollutants in the Galician waters and the north of Portugal waters. This project is considered a good practice, and it will be presented tomorrow. Finally, we have the Albufeira project. Which I will present to you now. The joint assessment program of water bodies, better known as the Albufeira project, as the following Portuguese partners: the Portuguese Environmental Agency, the Higher Institute of Agronomy, the Polytechnic Institute of Leiria, and the Spanish partners are DG Environments and SEDEX. With this project, we aim to improve the coordination of environmental goals in the four borders, international borders, Minho, Douro, Tejo, and Guadiana rivers, foreseeing the development of common methodologies for the monitoring of the status or environmental potential of river waters or transition waters, and also carrying out an inventory, cross-border inventory of activities and species. This is indeed a very ambitious project, and we hope to improve and also solve some of the incongruencies in the enforcement of the Water Framework Directive in both countries. Here we can see the different international water basins, the Lima River, the Douro, the Tagus, and the Guadiana rivers. In total, there are 60-70 cross-border water bodies, and most of them in the north region of the country. Now, which are the main difficulties faced with this project so far? This can be based upon the different typologies of water bodies in the two countries. This generates gaps regarding the different types of water bodies and different references. In a nutshell, a water body can have two different typologies depending whether this is in Portugal or in Spain, and this is an incoherence. Another difficulty are the different timings for collection, sampling that is different, and this hinders the comparison of data. So we need to identify the differences and try and decrease them by defining the location and also protocol. And finally, we have the different indicators or indexes used by countries, and these generate different methodologies. This is something else that we were able to pinpoint. Regarding all the work done between 2019 and 2020, both countries jointly monitored the cross-border water bodies using the methodologies of each country so as to have a benchmark. In 2021, we aim to monitor 7 common stations using a joint methodology so as to reduce the variability and thus enabling the comparison of quality indicators. And we hope that in 2022 this work has been concluded so as to develop the following planning cycle. And to finish my presentation, I will briefly talk about climate change. We are a country influenced by latitude, geography, and the proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. The rain and temperature have a strong gradient from the north to the south. and also from the west to the west. Rainy winters and dry and warm summers. The region with the highest rain levels in the northeast in Portugal, Minho and Douro, and the highest temperatures take place in the south and also in the hinterland. Climate change leads to an increase of temperatures and the reduction of rainfall, and this will be more severe in the interior and south of Portugal, increasing the periods of drought or affecting the temporary or transitional water bodies. And what is a temporary river? There are different definitions, but basically it is a river during part of the year. There's no water in the riverbed. Within the scope of the work developed by the Portuguese Environmental Agency, namely our section on the western region, we've did an assessment of temporary water bodies in continental Portugal. We consider a temporary water body when one of the two following conditions exists: the existence of a flow of less than 1 liter per second during 5 consecutive days, or in the absence of this information, it was considered as a criterion the non-existence of a flow at least in one of the 4 monitoring events used during 1 year. As we can see, the largest number of temporary water bodies are in the south of the country, with a weight of 60% if the interpreter well understood. Although the Douro Basin and also of the Tagus River in the south also have 50% of temporary water bodies, and this on our side is already expectable given the current climate conditions. And this was a surprise. The identification of temporary rivers in the region of Minho, something that was not expectable, but this was indeed the case. They were identified.
There's only 2 more slides, so I'll be quick. A temporalidade dos rios.
So we have the rivers that are subject to anthropogenic pressures, and this can change, namely the water catchment, dams and weirs, and animal watering. And this can explain why some water bodies are temporary, namely in the north region of the country. Finally, being this the case, there's difficulty in protecting the protocols and current methodologies, even if we adjust the collection of samples and postpone those in the fall. It's difficult to ensure the 4 sampling seasons, and this jeopardizes the effective assessment of the status of the water body and also the programs and measures to be applied. At European level, this is being studied with the EcoStat on temporary rivers, and we hope that guidelines will be defined for typology, the sampling to be used in the future. In a nutshell, the existence of temporary rivers is something common in the south of Europe, and this will be aggravated with climate change, and it may also impact other parts of the European continent. Thank you.
Please ask any questions.
Thank you, Vitorino José, for your presentation. Mainly focused on 3 specific challenges: monitoring, cross-border cooperation, and also some global challenges regarding climate change Now, monitoring is certainly the main point of the implementation of the Water Framework Directive, because if we can measure it, we can manage it, as Peter Drucker says. So we are certainly in the good way to achieve the environmental objective of attaining the good state of the water resources until 2027, as we established for Portugal. Now, I will give the word to, if you don't mind, we will leave the questions for the final debate. I think Yolanda has asked some questions, but if you don't mind, Yolanda, we will leave the questions for the debate. And now I will ask Sophia from the county, from the water unit of the County Administrative Council of Sweden. Are you there, Sophia? Sophia?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Great.
So
Great.
you have the word now, Sophia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yes, we are seeing.
You can see it? Okay.
Yes.
I will try to, okay, I will stop there. Okay, so I am Sofia Bastviken from the County Administrative Board in Östergötland in Sweden. And I also have one more from our organization. It's Sara Lönnerud, who's here also. And I will talk a little bit about how we have worked with the Water Framework Directive in our region. It's a region that is in the south of Sweden, and it's in the eastern coast. So here you can see some examples of our waters. We have groundwater in the lower part, in the left side, and then we have rivers, of course, and they are not as large as in the Central Europe, I think, or in the south of Europe. We have some larger ones, but most of them look like this in the picture. They're like in smaller rivers. And then we have lakes and coastal waters. In our regions, it's mostly these, it's not the longshore beaches, it's more like this. Yeah, you see in the picture. And we have a lot of islands in our archipelago. And our issue is that we have so many waters. This is just one small region in Sweden, and we still have, like you can see here, 45 coastal water basins, 273 rivers, and 123 lakes, and 174 groundwater aquifers. So we have had problems with monitoring everything. We will need methods for grouping them and for making this one type that's similar to another one, and we can extrapolate. We have used models for this and also some satellites and other techniques to see if, okay, this type of a river that has this impact should be treated the same as this one, besides this one. But now, after these many years with the Water Framework Directive, I think we almost have monitored everything anyway. But in the start, we tried to group and to see, yeah, at least the ones that we have problems with a large impact that has not reached good status yet. We have monitored. So this is one issue of our, what we are dealing with. If we look at the ecological status that we have measured or calculated in some way, we have, you see the picture on the right, we don't have that much high or good status actually. And this is not because we have such a horrible state in our waters, but we have a lot of impact from hydromorphology. And this is the one that that is, if you have, we treat them like if you have a small river and you have something like a city or some agriculture area or something that's not natural in the catchment around this water, then you get this impact of hydromorphology on the water. So it's very strict. So we can say that almost all our rivers or lakes are impacted by this hydromorphology. I can show you more later on. And also eutrophication, but that is only, yeah, most of it is in the agriculture part. It's in the middle of this region, and but not in the north and not in the south. And then we have toxic substances. That is also a main problem, I think, in most countries and in most regions. We have some, of course, monitoring and measurements, but we have a lot of rivers and waters that we have not even, we don't know the substances to measure, and we haven't measured everything. But in the picture here, you can see what we have in the worst case. The one in the middle with this brown water in the agriculture area, I would say that's our maybe the worst river that we. It's a small, as you see, it's very small, and it's a lot of impact from agriculture. So here we have about over 100 micrograms per liter phosphorus, and then that's a bad status for eutrophication. So just to see the range here, and then you can see then the lower parts we have in the city. We have a, yeah, the fish cannot go past this. So that's why this is for hydromorphology, it's a bad status. Just to see what I'm talking about. And as I said, we have these main challenges, and this is for the district actually. It's not only our region, but the district contains like 5 regions. And we have the same pattern, that we have hydromorphology is the largest one that we have, that we really know about, because we can see that this is not totally, it's affected by physical impact. Eutrophication is about half, maybe more in our region than in others, because we have a lot of agriculture in our region. But then we have these toxic substances, and then you can see that we have not measured all of them, because there's so many toxic substances that we don't know anything about. But for the ones that we have measured and that we know about, that's not very large, but we assume that it's a larger problem than what we can see. We don't have that much problem with acidification or invasive species in this district. I just put a list here for those who are interested in the detected toxic substances that we have. The first one is for ecological status, the middle one is for chemical status, and the lower one is for groundwater. Just for your knowledge. And if you're interested in more details, we have all this in a database called VIS, and it's available for anyone. It's also have this English button that you can choose to see how we have calculated everything. And I think now for us, it's interesting about these environmental quality standards, because I think we have a pretty good idea and a picture of how the status is in our waters. But then it comes now the time for exceptions and for setting these environmental quality standards. And then we will have to weigh in all these interests of other kinds, like economical and other national interests. So when we are also an authority that deals with if large industries need a permit or a permission to start an activity or something, then we are the authority to give that permission. So that's why we think that this is also very important and interesting to discuss this, what different regions, how they balance these exceptions. So for us, it's for now, we mostly have exceptions for in time, like we have all the eutrophication problems that we have set exceptions for 2027, but then we don't have any, we don't have that many exceptions that are really lower the demands, like less stringent demands. So but what we have is for hydromorphology, as this was really an issue that everybody was reacting about especially in the hydropower. We are using hydropower a lot in Sweden. So all these, yeah, the ones that deals with hydropower were really wanted to discuss this, that everything cannot be all natural. So now there have been a lot of discussions, and we have a national plan for how to make all the hydropower stations environmental, like getting a quality for environmental standards. And there has also been pointed out heavily modified hydropower, for hydropower. But that's the only one that has actually have a discussion with this heavily modified. We have not used this in the other areas. We have now started a discussion for agriculture. For as you can see in our region, we have a lot of these small rivers that are affected, of course, of agriculture. And should these be heavily modified, or should they be less stringent demands, or should they, yeah, that's a discussion that we have now started, but we have not finished that discussion. We have just started it up. How to treat those exceptions for agriculture. And that was for hydromorphology. But for pollution, then we have a national exception for mercury and brom. You can see brom. I can't read that, but you can see what it says. And it's for a whole nation, actually. So that's one exception that we have. Other exceptions that are discussed starting up for pollution is the wastewater treatment plants, as these are usually they are decreasing the pollution for a large area, but in a local spot there could be a problem. But then we will need some kind of discussion on where to put this where these treatment plants should be treated with a lower demand, less stringent exception than if you have, because we need them. So that's some kind of national interest in that one. Yes, so that's our situation with the exceptions and the discussions about that. As you all have also, we also have this program of measures, and we have it. I couldn't listen to all of you before because I had troubles getting into the meeting, but as we have it, it's that we have measures that are pointed out to the authorities and municipalities in this report, in this program of measures. It's not actual physical measures in this one. It's more administrative measures. And us as a county administrative board, we also have measures in this program of measures. So it's a tool, and it points out that you as a municipality or as an authority should work to you are responsible for reaching this environmental quality standard, and you should work with advisory, and you should work with consultations and with permits so that it's reachable. But as in this project, we have worked a little bit with trying to get this more local. This is a more a broader view, and you point out authorities and the local municipalities. But for getting really a grip on the water, you need to point out around the water what is the problem, what is the source, and what is this special industry or this treatment plant, what is actually their part of the problem. So we can reach them by setting different kind of permits and conditions for the permits in the right way. So that's what we are trying to do within this project in the end. So what has happened in our regions with this environmental quality standard is, as you know, this VESER, this permit for it was I don't know the words, but you know the VESER verdict. And then it said that we have the possibility to be lower in one class status. We cannot, that's okay. We cannot be getting worse between the classes. That's not okay. And not if we have a very bad classification, we cannot even get a little bit worse in that one. So it's not okay. So this is what we work with when we get the permits. They cannot reduce their, they cannot make it that much worse due to this verdict. But we also have a new law in Sweden that says that the municipality and the authorities, we have said that has been before, but now it's more, this has been redone a little bit. So besides it's the municipalities and the authorities, they are responsible for reaching the environmental quality standards. And they cannot allow actions or any industries or anything that have negative impact on the water environment or to lower the impact of the load according to the VESER verdict. So that's one. And the other one that's new is that we cannot have allow any action that have such an impact on the environmental quality standards that this will risk us not being possible, that we don't have the possibility, we will risk the possibility for the environmental quality standards to be reached, actually. In Sweden, we call this an adventure. So it's like you are, this is really a lot of discussions around this one now about how to balance this and how to really, okay, what is allowed then, what is not, could we put this industry here, it's affecting this much, but is it large enough? Is it a large enough impact or not? So this is actually a lot of discussions and decisions taking on this one. What we have noticed from this law that has been applied is some problems. We have this allocation problem that for now we have had industries or other wastewater treatment plants or anything, that if they cannot put it in one place, they will just change the outlet of this pollution, or they will change the location of the of the industry. And this is, of course, sometimes it's better to have a pollution in one place rather than the other, but it's usually it's just a dilution thing, that in the coastal area, if you take it further out, it's harder for us to say that it has a large impact, because the percentage contribution is very small, and you have a lot of effect from the outside sea. So this is some kind of issues that we have problems with, and it's also a problem how we have had this water body grouping, because some of the water bodies are small and some are large, and this affects then where you can put the industries. It's not the point of the Water Framework Directive, but it's an effect of it. So it's interesting to see how the other regions are dealing with this issue, I think. We have one example. We use the environmental quality standards almost in every, I would say in every permit that we have discussions around. We use this argument and this tool in all our permits, but it's not the main issue. Usually there's so many other laws that are even stronger, but for one we could just now see one that we had actually affected and denied, and it was a permit for a slaughterhouse for chickens that we have explained also in this JAR report that we have made, and it's in the coastal area, and it was because the phosphorus output, or the phosphorus outlet, would be very high, and they had to be denied according to the water quality standards. So that was really, it would be interesting to see if other regions could also have what examples do you have? When have you denied a permit due to the water quality standards? For us, it's not a very, in the total Sweden, in the whole Sweden, it has been more common, but in our region, this is, I think, the only example of this. Yes. We also have, these are more forced ones that I have discussed now, the forced ones, and this is, then we have the unforced measures also, that is not, that's more voluntarily. So we have a lot of consultations and subsidies that we target, try to match problems with measures. And this is what we want to do in these local water management plans, our good practices in this project. In this picture, you can see what we do with the agriculture. We have this mapping. We can see what areas leak phosphorus the most, and then we have more consultations and subsidies targeted to these areas. And they are modeled leakage, of course. Just for finalizing, is we have water councils, 9 in our region, and to get the local view of the problems. I think we have also had discussions about this, because these are more or less voluntarily. It's very, you don't have to be in these kind of water councils. It's voluntarily, and the result of this is that it's not always representative of all interests in these councils. Sometimes it's more only the agriculture interest is there, or sometimes it's only the hydromorphological interest in there. So, but it's because it's voluntarily. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sophia, for your presentation. We could find in your presentation some common aspects regarding the presentation made by Vitorino José, as the identification of critical situations and the identification of the problems, and also of the needs and responsible to achieve the environmental quality standards. Also, the monitoring techniques, not only the physical, chemical, and biological analysis, but also the use of remote sensing techniques and geographical information system has been referred in these two previous presentations. So now I will give Yolanda will give the next talk. Yolanda from the Technical University of Kaunas in representation of the Environmental Ministry of Lithuania. Yolanda, you can start with your presentation when you are ready, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, and it's nice to hear our colleagues from Big Data for Rivers project and others attendees, of course. And unfortunately, due to other activities, our Lithuanian Environmental Protection Agency, the representative gave to me and sent to me the slides, can't to participate and then try to comment on that. We talked with and he supported these slides and for the event. So actually, yes, I should somehow to move with the slides because it doesn't move. Just a minute. Actually, I do not know why, but they are not changing. Can you see my slide? Yes, you can see, but yes, but I can't to move further. I do not know why. And now it's okay, but it seems that I should proceed with each slide. I do not know why, but I will try to do my best, okay? Or maybe the host can move with my slides, but I will try to do my best my own, okay? So now today we have those 2 hours dedicated for Water Framework Directive, and of course in Lithuania we have, you know, Lithuania is a small country. We around of 3 million of inhabitants, and our Lithuanians area equals to approximately 65,000 square kilometers. So, and actually you will see from the next slides that we have a lot of water and a lot of rivers. We have more than 700 rivers in Lithuania and more than 2,800 of lakes, and only 99 kilometers of Baltic Sea coastline. And actually, our river basin management districts, there are 4 basins. All those basins are international. We share, or our basins shared with Latvia, Poland, Belarus, and Russia. And actually, I would say that not only this challenge to manage all these waters and all these issues related with the Water Framework Directive, because we are international, but of course we have a lot of local problems. So what are the pressures and impacts? So first of all, and we have heard from our colleagues from Sweden and Portugal that of course agriculture is one of the pressure of the sources of pollution, and of course from fertilizers, from what we do with our soils, with our agricultural lands, and of course animal manure. So 75–80% of nitrogen, nitrate nitrogen, comes from agriculture in Lithuania. And of course, the most affected rivers presented in this map by diffuse source pollution. You see that in red we see most in central area of Lithuania we have a lot of affected by diffuse source pollution of polluted rivers. But this is from information from the second round of river management plans, and I hope that the situation will be better when we will do our next round plans, but still we have a lot of problems with the rivers, and we will see that one of the problems are the straightened. About 40% of all river water bodies. From these, 45% are the risk because of the straightening, and 19 obstacles for fish migration, and 4% in water bodies risk because of hydropower plants. And those straightened rivers, there are a lot of reasons why they were straightened, but you see that almost all countries covered with the straightened rivers present in this slide. So heavily modified water bodies are due to intensive harbor activities, ponds and reservoirs with the area more than 0.5 square kilometers. Natural flow is continuously lower more than by 30% due to activity of Kaunas hydropower plant, due to river straightening in the agriculture region and urban territory, due to a sequence of hydropower plants built next to each other, and due to artificial water regime changes. So these are the main reasons for heavily modified water bodies. And causes of designation of heavily modified water bodies, you see the different colors in the map. In green we have straightened rivers. In orange we have hydropower plants effects, and many other reasons, and where the what are the main difficult or most important parts of Lithuania where the heavily modified water bodies exist. So, and there is also rivers affected by hydropower plants, and there are 41 cases of that where rivers affected by the hydropower plants. And of course, we also have the same problem, point source pollution, and point source pollution loads comprise surface runoff, industrial and municipal wastewater, and these are the 5% of water bodies at risk. And this is also the map with the rivers affected by point source pollution. And what are the significant pressures? And you see from the table that there are different impacts and pressures for lakes and rivers, and number of the inland surface water bodies failed good chemical status, and they indicated that number of water bodies failed with a good chemical status is 6, and substances of concern is mercury and others listed in this table. But I think nowadays we have more substances of concern, and we have more, I would say that water bodies with not good chemical status. So, and you see that pressures for rivers mainly related with the agriculture, point source, chemicals, urban diffuse pollution, fishery, transboundary, and some % are also unknown. And of course, pressures for lakes is past pollution, present and past pollution, chemicals, and still unknown. And I suppose that this unknown impacts and pressures are related that we really do not know if this is related with the past historical pollution or maybe with some other significant pressures. So, and there are some slides also on ecological status of water bodies, and as also our colleagues presented, there is also indication in red with not good surface water status, and with the blue with the good quality. But of course, it depends the quality and good status or not good status. It depends on criteria, and criteria they are also changing, and of course for the next round of water bodies they will be set, and all these criteria set by Water Framework Directive, they should be taken into account. And distribution of Lithuanian inland surface water bodies according to the classes of ecological status in according these classes in the second river basin management plans, you see that the most ecological status of rivers and ponds or lakes and ponds were more than 50 and 40% with a good quality, and then moderate, poor, and bad for the next for the rest of the diagrams. So, and what are the measures to achieve the environmental objectives? Of course, first of all, as main problems are related with agricultural pollution, and Lithuania are a very agricultural country. And of course, these measures are related with the requirements for mandatory fertilization plans for farms, and methodologies for preparation of fertilization plans, and requirements to collect and provide information on mineral and organic fertilizer consumption for farmers and agricultural land, and create a database for collecting and storing farmers' data on fertilizer consumption. And we still know that this pollution to Baltic Sea or nitrogen and phosphorus are the most important substances or the pollutants, and we should work on reduction of pollution from agriculture. We should continue working on these. So what are the measures? Of course, the other measures are the financial schemes to support farms situated in risk water bodies, basins, and grow larger than required area of catch crops, and update good agriculture practice code, taking into account also the effect on greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. And what are the point source pollution reduction measures that ensure more effective wastewater treatment by modernization of shelf wastewater treatment plants, and strengthen control of pollution from settlements which are not fully connected to sewage network. And I would like to comment that still we have a big problem with the small, less than 2,000 PE agglomerations or cities, and we still have also problem with settlements which are not connected to huge networks. Networks exist, but citizens they refuse to connect to the systems. And what are the measures for reduction of negative impact on water bodies made by hydromorphological changes? So these requirements for implementation of soft denaturalization measures for straightened river beds, state implementation of soft denaturalization measures, and to improve conditions for fish migration, and of course change of legal requirements for hydropower plants installation and operation in order to reduce negative impacts made by hydropower plants. And these are the obstacles also presented for fish migration to be removed or fixed, and indicated 20 of such territories. And I'm not going to comment on this slide, but maybe for the improvement of ecological status and potential of lakes and ponds, enrich lakes and ponds by predatory and herbivore fish, catching non-predatory fish from lakes, removal of sediments, removal of microphytes, investigate monitoring where causes for not achieving good status of water bodies are not clear, and hydrological regime restoration. They indicate for different members of different water bodies. And what are the challenges? Of course, these challenges are related with environmental objectives and exemptions. The objectives for 2021 water bodies in good status, and there are different percentage for river, lakes, and some transition and coastal water bodies. And objectives for 2027, good status in all water bodies, and exemptions, straightened rivers without monitoring data, all lakes transitional, and coastal water due to natural reasons. And thank you for your attention. And if you will have some questions, I really would like to discuss with our national authority and representatives about the water framework implementation in Lithuania nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yolanda, for your presentation. You referred the main problems that have been identified in Lithuania, and one of these problems is certainly common to the previous presentations, the case in Portugal and in Sweden, which is the diffuse pollution from agriculture. You have also presented some measures that are being implemented in Lithuania, which are also common, some of them, and others can be used in other regions in order to solve the same problem. Now, the next communication, the next presentation will be done by António Sanfinhos in representation of the Iberian Association of Ribeirinhos do Douro Municipalities in Spain. António, are you ready?
Well, yes. Okay. In first place, I wish you everybody a good new year, and I hope that everybody is quite okay in regarding the COVID-19. So I will make a brief presentation in behalf of Iberian Association of Riverside Municipalities of Douro River. And the main point of this presentation will be the results of the transposition of the Water Framework Directive for in Spain. Okay. For better understanding, I will make my presentation in Portuguese, since it's my mother language. So I ask you all to recur to the translator service that are at your disposal here. Okay. So if I can go on.
The Iberian Association of Riverside the municipality of Douro, is the key Spanish-Portuguese cooperation entity in the territorial framework of the Douro River. It was established in 1994. Its key objective is a firm commitment towards a sustainable and comprehensive development around the river Douro in order to ensure a sustainable future for future generations. We want to ensure a sustainable future while preserving all the ecological and development values. It's a river basin with 97,000 square kilometers, out of which 18,000 are in Portugal, i.e. 19.07% of the total area, and the remaining 78,889 square kilometers are in Spain. Hence, the largest part of the river basin is based in Spain. More specifically, 80% of the total river basin is located in Spain. This is one of the largest basins of the peninsula/Iberian rivers. As it was said earlier today, Portugal shares several rivers with Spain. So this is nothing new because the Portuguese largest rivers start in Spain. So we have a joint management with Spain of these river basins. In the case of the Douro River Basin, it covers in Portugal 74 cities or municipalities, totally or partially. In Spain, as you know, one of the administrative divisions in Spain is the autonomous communities, and the Douro River Basin extends to 8 autonomous communities. The main one being the Castilla and Leon autonomous communities, because 98% of this river basin is based in this very same autonomous community. In terms of management, and earlier today we listened to a representative of the Portuguese Environment Agency. This agency has a decentralized service, which is the Northern Hydrographic Region Administration, that represents and safeguards the interests of Portugal when it comes to the management of the river Douro. The counterpart in Spain is the Confederación Hidrográfica del Duero, which is under the umbrella of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food and Environment from Spain. Here you see the full river basin of the Douro River. As you can see, it's indeed a very large river basin. Here is the border between Portugal and Spain. And as you can actually see, most of the area of this river basin is located in Spain. The Iberian Association of Real Estate Municipalities of Douro is located here in Lugares del Duero. Regarding the transposition of the Water Framework Directive, this transposition faced a few challenges in Spain. From the institutional viewpoint, there are several entities responsible for territorial management. And one of the difficulties was to establish the duties/responsibilities of each one of these entities. In Portugal, for instance, we have the central government, and then we have the municipalities. These municipalities can group together in intermunicipalities, like the case of the Alto Minho intermunicipality. Whereas in Spain, we have the central government, then we have the autonomous communities, and within the autonomous communities, we have the municipalities, but not only the municipalities, there are other entities that play their part. So one of the key challenges in the transposition of the WFD in Spain was the diverse role of entities. WFD transposition into Spanish law was made by Article 129 of Law 62 of 2003. This law materialized the formal transposition of the Water Framework Directive. Some regulations had to be developed, including the regulation of hydrological planning process, the redefinition of the limits of the river basin districts, and the redefinition of the competences of the several entities involved. Like elsewhere in the EU, Spain finished the second cycle regarding the implementation of the WFD. Spain is now in its third cycle. And as I said earlier, one of the initial challenges was related with the specificities of the Spanish government system. But in the meantime, these difficulties were already overcome. Spain is organized in municipalities, provinces, and autonomous communities, and the central government. And all these entities play a part in the management of their own interests. And so, once again, I'm reiterating that this was one of the obstacles in the transposition of the Water Framework Directive. Each one of these entities has different competences, either legislative competence, the power to proclaim laws, or regulatory competences, the one that gives power to regulate, and the executive competences, i.e. competences that will fulfill and enforce the laws. And these competences may be shared by the different state and autonomous communities. So this type of competences can be divided in three big types of competence, including exclusive competences, when the competence is under the umbrella of a single entity. They may be shared competences, traditional shared by the central government and the autonomous communities, and they may have also concurrent competences. When there are two entities that have the same rights on the matter. Hence, there's a need to reach an agreement between the different stakeholders. Water is a universal resource, and it has impact on several domains, including environment, agriculture, fisheries, health, energy, civil protection, sports, and leisure. Hence, each entity has some degree of competences. In spite of this diversity, the general principles of the public water management stem from the Water Framework Directive itself, including to ensure an integrated management of the resource in its various aspects, while respecting the participation of all entities according to their competences. Secondly, to respect the river basin and its hydrological cycle. So, a direct transposition of one of the principles of the Water Framework Directive. Also, to ensure the compatibility of the water resources with other management activities, like spatial planning, environment protection, and natural resources. And the last principle is that the river basin region is indivisible, and it is the base unit for watershed planning and management purpose. Once again, this is a principle inherent to the community directive. So I think that this is a principle common to all the EU countries. In Spain, there are two types of hydrographic basins. Inter-community basins, when its territory extends over more than one autonomous community, and intra-community basins, when its territory is fully included within the territory of one autonomous community. And the former entail a shared management by the autonomous communities where this river basin is located. There's yet another entity, a public entity, responsible for the public hydraulic domain. And they play a key role. I'm referring to the hydrographic confederations. And they have the power to carry out the hydrological planning and implementation of state plans for hydraulic infrastructures. They also have the power, the mandate to adopt the required measures to ensure compliance with international agreements and conventions on water. Hence, the Hydrographical Confederation of the Douro River is the one that will interact with the Portuguese Environment Agency regarding the Douro River Basin, because this confederation comprises 8 autonomous regions. And this confederation, on behalf of the Spanish state, will, as I said, ensure compliance with international agreements and conventions on water. And this confederation will make sure that proper planning is made. The autonomous communities or the confederations need to ensure the general principles of the public water management aforementioned. They need to ensure the representation of users in the water cycle. I mean, representing the community, representing the interests of industrial users, representing the interests of the economic sector at large, leisure related, tourism related, industrial related. So they need to consult these actors in order to give you a clear idea of the separation of competences between the relevant entities. We can say that in a summary manner, the Spanish Constitution established the following competence framework. The central government is exclusively responsible for the following: make legislation, management and concession of resources and hydraulic uses when the waters flow through more than one autonomous community, and authorization of electrical hydric installations or the transport of energy. The central government is also responsible for ensuring the interests of all those that are involved in the river basin. So the state plays the role of a mediator between the different autonomous community covered by the river basin. And the central government is also responsible for drafting basic legislation on environmental protection without prejudice to the legislative powers of the autonomous communities. Although the legislative powers of the autonomous communities are more limited. The state prepares legislation so that Spain can comply with international treaties and conventions which it ratified. As for the autonomous communities, their main competences are to use water streams, mineral and thermal waters, fishing in inland waters, shellfish and aquaculture, and also the autonomous communities is responsible for the management of all matters related to environmental protection of the river basin. Here on this slide, you have the information regarding the hydrographic confederations. I already explained this to you. I will refrain from repeating myself. I would like just to reiterate that these are public entities under the umbrella of the Ministry of the Environment and Rural and Marine Affairs. These are entities between the central government and the autonomous communities. And the main purpose of these hydrographic confederations are the elaboration of the basin hydrological plan, its monitoring and review, Also, the management and control of the public hydraulic domain, and also the design, construction, and operation of the works carried out with charge to the agency's own funds, and those that are entrusted to them by the state. To a certain extent, the powers of the state are delegated to these hydrographic confederations. These confederations also play a key role when granting permits and authorizations for water uses. They are responsible for hydrological studies, information on floods and water quality control, and they're also responsible for the study, design, construction, and exploitation of the hydraulic works included in their own plans in their own river basin. I'm very sorry, but you need to speed up so that we have time for the debate afterwards. Here you have a map with all the hydrographic confederations in Spain. As you can see, there's a vast array of them. And in this map, you see the river basins in Spain, totaling 25. Here you have the same information. On the left-hand side, you have the map with the different hydrographic confederations. As you can see, 4 of them are have an international nature because they interact with Portugal, and 4 others which interact with France. And on the right-hand side, you have the 25 river basins, including information regarding the countries sharing borders. This is the base unit for the management of water resources in Spain, as provided for by the Water Framework Directive. And this brings me to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for your presentation. Now, in order to try to meet the time schedule for this session, I think we should begin with the debate. I noticed that Yolanda has asked some questions, 2 of them to Vitorino José. She would like to ask if the mentioned compounds, such as antibiotics or other pharmaceuticals, are included in the national monitoring program, and if he could comment what are the reasons that for the diversity of criteria for methodologies regarding different indicators, which he mentioned as main difficulties when comparing data between Portugal and Spain. Vitorino, are you there? Could you please answer to Yolanda?
Hello. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to speak in English. So if you want to listen Portuguese, you need to use the translator. I will ask if I can share some data. I have the possibility. It's easier to show some, to explain some things. On first question regarding compounds, antibiotics, and pharmaceutical products. So far, there is no legislations, so no norms, no nothing like that. We are waiting for the European Union to finish studies, so we can advance. But we choose to already start trying to know what is happening in Portugal, what compounds appear in Portuguese waters, namely antibiotics. And there's always a problem with the resistance to antibiotics. and with the bacteria, some bacteria are now resistant to antibiotics. So it's very important to know beforehand what we have. I believe hopefully I answered the first question. Regarding second questions, Luisa, can I have the possibility to share content? It's very easy to explain the difference with some maps and some guides. Okay, let me share my second screen.
Dear Vitorino.
We have regarding the typologies. These are the Portuguese typologies. These are the Spanish typologies. They are not exactly the same. In some cases, we have our typology is different from theirs. In some cases, for example, Portugal is one water body, in Spain is two water bodies, and vice versa. There's also a problem with the localizations of the station, the stations, monitoring stations. For example, in this case, the light blue is Portuguese one, and green is Spanish one. It's a transborder river, and they are not exactly the same place. So there are always some difference. And finally, regarding the methodologies, for example, Portugal samples for invertebrate samples 100 meters, 100 meters, and Spain 500 meters. This small difference can create different classifications. Another example, for example, for transitional waters, Portugal samples on spring, Spain, I believe, on summer. For reservoirs, Portugal does 6 samples, Spain 4 samples. So far, what we have done is always to try to establish the same common classification of the water bodies. That's quite easier for transboundary rivers, because we can always, if there is different classifications, we can always say that, okay, pressures in Spain are different from Portugal, but for border water bodies, that solution is not possible. So what we do, we try to use the worst case scenario. For example, if Portugal it's a good and Spain it's reasonable, or we use the Spanish classification. So with this project, we want to end the little incongruences, little problems. So we have just one common classification for at least for border water bodies, but expected to all water bodies. I believe, I'm not sure if it's a unique case in Europe, but we are trying to, at least as far as I know, I don't know any other countries that are trying to do something similar. So hopefully I answer your questions.
Thank you, Vitorino. Thank you very much. Yes, because I understood that something in the country, inside the country, some different methodologies and criteria used. But as I understood now, this is because you are sharing and you have internationally Portugal and Spain, and of course in each country there are different requirements, criteria, methodologies, and many things. So thank you very much for your answer.
I think She asked Sophia if she could please comment on permits. Who is responsible in Sweden to issue the environmental permits for the companies, national authority or regional? Sophia, could you please ask? Could you please answer the question? Sorry.
Actually, it was my question. I am Sara in this case. So I was thinking about you other presenters. If you have an example of this, when you have struggled with the environmental quality standards and seen that they have had an effect in permits, for instance.
Sophia, I think that in the case of Portugal, there are some legislation that, in first place, I think that your questions is regarding to the permits to some industry could put their whole waters in the rivers. I am correct?
Yes, that if they couldn't establish, for instance, if you have, if your prognosis is that they will pollute the river, then you deny the permit. They cannot establish.
No, in Portugal, the scheme is a little different. There are legislation that implies the quality of the raw water to be discharged in the river. Okay, so any industry that make raw wastewater and wants to discharge them in the river knows that he must comply that level of quality for wastewater. Okay, so there isn't only for great industries facilities, maybe there will be necessary to do an environment analysis impact. Okay, and for this type of and dimension of industries, the response can be yes, you can implement the industry, or no. For the general industry facilities, we have legislation regarding the quality of wastewater that must be obliged. Okay, and if the industry comply this type of quality levels for wastewater, it can discharge them in the river. If something wrong happens in the river, there will be a study to identify the source of the pollution, and then if the source is identified, there will be economical consequences for the industry. Okay, so let me be more practical. If you want to put an industry and the wastewater will be discharged in some river, there are 4 or 5 parameters that must be analyzed with some periodicity in the wastewater, like pH, CDO, CBO5, SST, and they only after this type these parameters must be analyzed in wastewater with some frequency, and their results must be communicated to the authorities. Okay, if you comply the levels in that legislation, you can discharge the wastewater. Okay, so this is the scheme here in Portugal. Only for the big facilities, the legislation applies to make a peers environment assessment, and if that environment assessment defines that that place is not suitable for that type of facility, there is no permission to implement that facility. Okay, so you have quality for discharging wastewater levels that the industry, that every facility must comply, and if some pollution problems appears in the river, there will be a work of identify the source of the pollution, analyzing if they are complying the limits in their permission to discharge, and if they aren't comply that limits, there will be some economical consequences for the industry. Okay.
Thank you, Antonio.
If I might, excuse me, if I might add some information regarding this question, every industry or every wastewater treatment plant must comply with the legislations. If you discharge to the rivers, you must comply with the legislations. In some cases, we demand also monitorization of the rivers before and after the discharge to prove that there is no effect of the wastewater discharge in the water. Also, it's important to notice that when there is a new project regarding licensing, we try to analyze the impact in the rivers. Sometimes we demand an assessment if there's a bigger industry or bigger wastewater treatment plants, and it can be denied, or it can be we can demand extra measures. Also, regarding, for example, access to European funds, we can conditionate the use of funds to prove that there will be no impact of that economical activity in the quality of the water. If there is an impact, we might give a negative, we will do negative judgments.
Thank you, Vitorino, for this very important information. Is there any question or any comment?
Anna Cristina, may I comment or answer to Sarah's question? That we haven't such case when EQS have been the main force to deny a permit. Actually, I didn't hear about that. Maybe somebody knows, but I think not a case. But my question was to Sarah about the permit. Actually, we have discussed when we were in Athens, because we have this issuing of permits we have from the national authority. And my question was if there are different management and management for issuing permits in different regions, or this is made in Sweden centrally and nationally, or each region is responsible for to issue the permits for companies, industrial companies, or other we needs or asking the permits to discharge waters or wastewaters to surface waters or to somewhere else.
Yeah, for us, it's a regional, actually, when you suggest a permission, but then in court, it's a national court. So we have both, but we manage it regionally. Because
our municipalities or local authorities, they also, and national, of course, authority, they were asking us about that management and how to involve municipalities to be responsible for their waters, for their lakes and rivers. And actually, this could be the good case how to involve them to be responsible for their waters, not only nationally. The national authorities should take this responsibility, but also the local authorities and local authorities, they have to make also this contribution or take this responsibility what they own. Or I think it's we have from the long time this and doesn't work. I think we should change, or if of course our national authorities will try to use the good examples from other countries, especially from Sweden, what you have in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yolanda, for your comment. Is there any question or comment? Then I would like to thank all the speakers, and it was a great pleasure for me to see you all. And I just would like to highlight some conclusions, if I'm allowed to, Luisa. So I would like to highlight some aspects, some common aspects from all these presentations. Beginning with there is a monitoring programs are in course, including emerging pollutants in all the cases, I think, using not only physical, chemical and biological analysis, but also using other techniques such as geographical information systems, remote sensing, and also modeling techniques, as Sophia mentioned. I would also like to highlight the availability and sharing of monitoring data, which is a very good, which is very good, because as mentioned by the speakers, it reduces costs, especially this sharing between Portugal and Spain, as they have common rivers. And it's the existence of platforms with this public information. Also, I think the main problems and critical situations are identified, as well as the needs and the responsibles in most of the cases. And some specific measures have been pointed out, such as the definition of local water management programs or water management plans, as referred by Sophia, the definition of measures to reduce agricultural diffuse pollutions, as mentioned by Yolanda, and the requalification of wastewater treatment plants. So I think we are on the right track to attain the goal of achieving the good water quality, the good water status until 2027. Hopefully we will work hard at least to achieve that goal. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Luisa, once again for the invitation. Thank you to Simaltumi and all the project team.
Emissão para encerrarmos esta sessão. Eu gostaria de começar a agradecer a todos os.
Before closing the session, I would like to thank the speakers and the participants, and I would like to thank also Interactio for providing these interpreting services, and we hope to see you tomorrow. We will start at the same time 9 a.m. Portuguese time for a virtual study tour and also for the exchange of experiences. Thank you so much and see you all tomorrow. Have a nice day.